Having good style is a hard thing to achieve sometimes, especially when you're working with a canvas that is pretty much the same as everyone else's. Such is the challenge for a company like Nothing, and we have seen them attempt to inject some fresh design into earbuds and now their smartphones. Their second smartphone is not only refining that aesthetic, but now it is going to be made available in the US. And I think it's actually going to light things up a bit. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is the Nothing Phone 2. I don't have any sponsors for this video, but I do want to get right into the tea break today. The reason why is because the design of the Nothing Phone 2 actually lends itself to this particular scenario. You see, the light strips and the diodes on the back of the smartphone return from the previous edition, but things are a little bit different this time around. Nothing are working to ensure that these are more useful in more scenarios. There's more separation in the various strips now, and this particular one actually has multiple diodes in it to show progression in a few different ways. What is one of those ways? Well, it's a visual timer, so we're going to use that to make some tea. I'm actually going to keep this pretty simple by just making some jasmine tea in the Gong Fu style, so we're only going to take up about a minute to make this particular tea. It's basically just green tea with some strong floral notes. Give it a quick rinse with one batch of water. The prep takes just like 20 seconds, and I'm actually going to discard the water into this water tray that I have. So after the prep, we make the first batch of actual tea to drink. So to start the timer, we just come over here. I actually have the glyph timer as one of my quick setting shortcuts. Hit that and it says flip to start. You just flip the phone and there you go. It's ready to go. You can see that the glyph is counting down, and when it is going to finish, it will chime, and then we can hit stop on the notification after we turn the phone back around. Obviously, the tea is now ready, so for today's tea break, I just wanted to remind you, well, put the phone down once in a while. I know that's pretty funny of me to say in what is literally a review or a tech video on a smartphone, but I really do mean it. We actually don't have to be constantly stimulated all the time, whether it's by media that we would have on our phones, social media, video games, even music in the background. Try to put some time aside every day, even like 5 minutes, to just sit with yourself and to let your brain and your mind flow naturally. The trick is that you shouldn't judge yourself for any thoughts that come up, because thoughts are not facts, they're just thoughts. And even if you do think of something heavy or negative, guess who has the power to move past it and let it go? You do. So sit for a bit. Maybe have a ritual like I do with this tea. And thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you come for the tech, but you stay for the tea. And with all that said, let's get right back into it. I mentioned putting the phone down in the tea break because that's actually what Nothing is encouraging you to do with the Nothing Phone 2. The company's idea that tech should be essential yet unobtrusive, it takes on the look of these lights, the glyphs, and it takes on their utility. And while it might be easy to just disregard those ideals and believe Nothing is just explaining away a cool looking phone, I actually think they have a point. We live with our smartphones always near us, that's just a fact. And while we always need to be connected, the way that we connect with our tech can actually be different. In a word, it can be intentional. So Nothing literally says, put the phone down. The glyphs will let you know that it is ready to just notify you whenever something comes up. Even better, you can actually set a persistent light up here for your most important notifications. In my case, I have Messenger and Telegram, not Gmail, for that persistent glyph light. And while it might be really cool to see the glyphs light up at any point, it eventually turns into more of a nudge than a distraction. See, it invites intention, because ultimately it's up to you to turn the phone over and see what came in, especially if it's coming in through that persistent notification. That's when you know, maybe I should check my phone. Now, I would prefer that there's less danger of scratches to the main screen, but I actually really like this little philosophy that the Nothing Phone 2 is trying to impart. I mean, I already tend to put my phone face down when I'm talking to or eating with people, so it's at least simultaneously still useful and undoubtedly still cool. There are more things that you can do with the glyphs. I already showed off the glyph timer, but there's a whole area in the settings that shows you the various things you can do. You can get a light to turn on so you know that the Google Assistant is listening to you. You have a charging meter just like in the previous phone so that you can check the progress of your charge. And then there's now a glyph progress area. Right now it only works with Uber, so that you know how far your Uber is via just that one bar turning full. You can also have some proper fun with these lights by composing your own ringtones and light shows. It's somewhat limited in that you only have like 5 different sets of sounds that you can use and to light up with the glyphs, but I did want to have some fun with it myself, so you can head over to my Instagram when you have a chance and you can see what I did with the actual glyph lights by composing my own glyph light sequence. Honestly, the glyphs just do a really good job of making this phone feel fresh, and there is an air of cool that makes this easy to reach for whenever I'm looking at what phone to bring with me when I leave the house. That's exactly what happens with the earbuds, the Nothing Ear 1, the Ear Stick, and now the Ear 2. So it really helps that these products aren't just cool, they're actually quite good under the surface. After all, the Nothing Phone 2 performs like a champ, even if it's not sporting the latest and absolute greatest specifications. The choice to bring the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 brings the cost down a little, while keeping the everyday performance high, and pretty much no general user should feel wanting with the Phone 2. The 6.7-inch LTPO OLED screen provides plenty of viewing room and viewing pleasure, and the performance is exactly where it should be. We can also chalk that up to a software UI that is as lovingly designed as, well, the design of the phone itself. I really enjoy how Nothing tackles Android. This might be one of my favorite versions of the UI right now. There are just a bunch of things in the interface that are pretty well thought out so that things remain as useful as they are aesthetically pleasing. Things like folders that can be enlarged so that those icons are pressable so you don't have to always open up the folder in order to get to them. And just like with the hardware, there's like this air of cool that's just found throughout the interface, including with the various widgets that are available for different types of clocks and of course for the weather. Now, going black and white for pretty much the entire color scheme is a little bit eye-catching in its own right, but the choice to go monochrome on as many icons and as many elements as possible actually adds uniformity, and that actually means that there's some intentionality here as well. Now, there are actual studies showing that going monochrome on your smartphones reduces your chances of distraction, because all of the brands and social media platforms and even the games that you have installed on your smartphone are just vying for your attention via splashes of color and visually stunning icons or notifications. You can think of it as like thumbnails on YouTube. They're all trying to grab your attention and keep it there. Instead, Nothing is trying to minimize that pull by making everything as uniform as possible, so that when you want to open an app, you have to do so intentionally and deliberately. Now, as you can see here, there are a number of icons that are not black and white or monochrome yet, but there was just an icon pack that was released by Nothing themselves that should be able to fix a lot of these colorful icons and make them more uniform in the app drawer. And that philosophy of actually minimizing the distractions by minimizing, let's say, the color that the interface has, it's something I've actually done with certain launchers in the past, with mostly positive results. It's really interesting to see that Nothing is trying to make that an integral part of their operating system now. And you know what, just like with the hardware, if you don't really buy into the whole idealism of minimalism, well, that's okay, because at least everything here just looks cool and honestly, just really works. Just works is the right way to put it, because we know what makes a good smartphone these days. Nearly every spec is right where they should be, unless you're like super power hungry, as the 4700 milliamp hour battery is providing me at least 5 hours of screen on time generally, and that is with YouTube generally playing audio in the background. I know, a habit that I should probably mitigate more moving forward. The included transparent charging cable also feels like it's one of a kind, and now it is permanently in my bag. And of course, wireless charging is available on here. You can see that via the coil that's here on the back. 15 watts is what you'll get with the wireless charging, and it also does power share, so I've charged up the Nothing Ear 2 using this a couple of times. And finally, we have a camera system that, again, just works. It's yet another part of the smartphone formula that doesn't need to be extraordinary to be successful, even though I will admit extraordinary is something I personally look out for in the camera side of things. But for anyone else, this camera will do just fine. I took the camera with me to NYC for a work trip and then just walked around for a while to get these particular photos. Nothing software processing supporting the 50 megapixel main camera does yield proper results, missing only the levels of HDR that you might want in particularly uneven lighting situations. The ultrawide sensor is also good, but it shows the lack of powerful processing even more, like in most other phones. Once again, I kvetch over the lack of 4K video recording on the front-facing camera, like on most other phones, but at least least it can hit 60 frames per second. It's interesting how we're getting into a paradigm where smartphone cameras can be categorized the way certain regular cameras are. I've heard the term creator's camera recently, and they're right, the Nothing Phone 2 camera is not for creators. It also might not be for certain, let's say, documentarians, like the one sitting in the bleachers trying to get a shot of their kid on the field, because there's no proper zoom on here. No, the Nothing Phone 2, like many other phones, has a camera that is at its most effective in the same range as the glyphs are meant to be, more like in one-on-one or maybe small group settings. I find it pretty interesting that the camera system then falls under the same intentional philosophy as the rest of the phone, from the hardware to the software, just as nothing describe. If life is all about connection and we need to manage tech to optimize those connections, well, Nothing has done a pretty good job of creating a smartphone that actually tries to do that on a fundamental level. Again, you can always look past those ideals and just see the product for how it looks. I think that was actually true for the earbuds more than anything. But I've been using the Nothing Phone 2 for a few weeks now, and it's actually making some sense to me. But it's also not anywhere near the competition found at the $1,000 mark. And you can see, once you hit that price point, what those phones try to do to push the envelope in order to justify those prices. It's at this price point that you can look at base models of main competitors from Samsung and Google and OnePlus, and in all of those respects, those phones try really hard to provide more for less. The Nothing Phone 2 is the first phone I can remember that is trying to provide just enough, maybe even a little less. And if nothing else, that actually makes it worth taking a look at, in my opinion. And so there you have it, the Nothing Phone 2. Thanks for bearing with me as I put my thoughts together on a phone that actually made me think harder about what I actually want in my pockets, whether it is just for intentionality or just because I wanted something cool. So I gotta give some props to Nothing for somehow putting those differing philosophies together into one device. Let me know your thoughts on the Nothing Phone 2 in the comments, and if you're into the hype, the philosophies, any of it. But from there, I'm gonna go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.